the most important thing that a marketer can do, in my mind, is talk to customers. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, of course, but it's not done nearly as much as it should be. And there's evidence of that.
Hi all, welcome to Engati CX. Today we have the pleasure of welcoming Tom Pick to our interview series. I would like to begin just a quick intro of Engati. Engati is the world's leading multilingual no-code chatbot platform, available across 14 channels with 25,000 bots created across 186 countries in every domain and use case. Engati has also been recognized as a top platform by INC.com, TechWorld, CIO, and many others. We run the Engati blog, video channel, and the Engati CX podcast, receiving upwards of 300,000 visitors annually. And now for our guest. Tom Pick is a B2B marketing consultant who has helped dozens of small to medium-sized organizations from solopreneurs to 100 million enterprises, improving their online visibility, website traffic, lead generation, and business results. He has helped the customer experience and optimized marketing technology strategies. He has also been awarded with Disruptive Marketing Influencers New Year 2020, 15 powerful B2B marketing influencers you need to follow, Bright Minds of Martech, 14 visionaries to read and follow, top 100 social media influencers to follow in 2019, and more. So hi Tom, we are really happy to have you on Engati.
Good morning. Pleased to be here.
Yeah. So before we begin with the interview, here's a quick announcement. We have something special for all of you, so would request you all to stick around till the end of the interview. So the first question, Tom, that I have for you is that how is B2B marketing changing with the ongoing pandemic, and what trends will we see post-pandemic?
Yeah, it's obviously it's been an interesting year. I think one of the biggest changes is that B2B marketers have had to either learn a new skill or perhaps use a certain skill more than they typically would in a quote-unquote normal year. So when you think about it, right, in a normal year, a company would do their planning in like November, December, and then January, they'd sort of kick off the plan. They'd monitor their KPIs. They'd make sort of tweaks as they go along. There may be things that happen in the industry or with competitors that they've probably already scenario planned, so they would adjust to those. And that's how this year started out. And in January, the economy, at least in the economy, was booming. Record low unemployment. Pretty much every industry sector was doing well and optimistic, and it looked like it was going to be a very good year. Obviously, mid-March, all of that got thrown out the window. And marketers had to adjust very quickly. We've been through recessions and things before, but we've never had a situation where we've gone from record low unemployment to record or near record joblessness in just a couple of months. So it's the word unprecedented gets thrown around a lot, but it really is. The vast majority of us have never lived through a pandemic, and we can look at there's the John Barry book, The Great Influenza, about the 1918-19 Spanish flu, which helps us kind of get some perspective on this. But the past can only teach us so much. The world has changed so much, obviously, from a century ago. Communications, we can learn much more about the virus and communicate that much more quickly. Just by orders of magnitude than we could 100 years ago. The speed and the scope of global travel has, it's done obviously a lot of wonderful things, but it's also unfortunately enabled this virus to spread to, around the globe very quickly. And of course, the structure of the economy is much different. We were very heavily agrarian and manufacturing a century ago, and there are industries today, the entire technology industry, software industry, and these things didn't exist. So it's a very different world. And so we can learn some things from that experience, but also we're very much in uncharted waters. I think in a way that B2B marketing has had to adapt to this is sort of, if you're familiar with, there's some work by a psychologist on the 5 stages of grief, anger, denial, bargaining. I think we've sort of gone through that in the last couple of months as a society, but certainly also as marketers. as we've adapted to this. I did some research right around the end of March with a site called B2B Marketing Zone among B2B marketers. And at that point, I would say we were still very much in the denial stage, because marketers were saying, oh, we'll be back to doing live events by midsummer and everything will be back to normal by fall. I mean, it was just obviously very over optimistic, but it was, that was the feeling at the time, and that evolved very quickly, right? I think we went through those other stages as people realized, things aren't going to open up that quickly. And so marketers have had to adapt, be very agile and adapt everything, right? Change their messaging, change their tactics, their channels, everything about every 2 weeks since this thing first started. And so that's been a big challenge there. So again, we've worked through the crisis. I think we're very close to the final stage of this 5 stages, which is acceptance. And so B2B buyers and marketers alike have kind of are getting to the point where we've adjusted to the different world of work, to what's happening with the economy, and hopefully we're looking for some recovery, at least a gradual recovery, to start happening there very soon. On the buyer side, buyers are saying, well, business has to go on, even though it's a very different world, and so they are still buying. Their purchases tend to be very tactical at this point, so they're not so much going out and doing big sort of rip and replace type things where they're doing massive changes that take a long time to implement. They're doing much more smaller tactical purchasing with a couple of goals. One is making more, or making the best of what they already have in place, and the other is purchases that can help them work well in this environment and get a very quick return and see very quick results from those. Post-pandemic, I think we're going to see a lot of change. This, the movement to obviously so many people, especially in the IT world, leaving the offices and working from home because of as the pandemic was forced. I don't see us ever going back to quite the way things were. I mean, people will obviously go back to office work, but I think there'll be much more of a mix of people working remotely part of the time and in the office part of the time. And office layouts will change. It'll probably be the end of the open office, which is good riddance because no one's ever liked that. So that's I don't think anybody's going to miss that. But managers will have to change how they manage their employees and how they evaluate performance and reward performance, because when you don't have employees with you all the time, it's going to be much more based on our objectives met and how well are people contributing, and using metrics that they're putting in place now because they've been forced to. But those things I think are going to stick around after this pandemic is gone, hopefully sooner rather than later.
There are a lot many changes and actually people are talking about like the new normal, but it is not going to be very normal. Like, it is very different from the normal that we had before. So yeah,
definitely.
So how can B2B SMEs and solopreneurs leverage tech and AI in this pandemic to their benefit?
Great question. So really a couple different things there. Just in terms of the technology, there's technology now for everything to help automate or streamline or whatnot, just about every task. There is I have some graphical aids here. There's a guy named Scott Brinker. He's Chief Martech on Twitter, very well known, super smart guy, very good guy. He has been doing since 2011. Every year he comes out with this thing he calls the Marketing Technology Landscape Super Graphic. And it's sort of a look at all of the different categories of tools and different technology that's out there for marketing technologists. I think there were 150 tools on his first graphic back in 2011. This year there are 8,000.
Oh, wow.
And so it looks like this. Which, that's pretty clear, right? You can get a lot of a benefit out of that. Yeah, obviously it's kind of overwhelming. It's great stuff, but it's hard to act on that. So when I talk to people about marketing technology, I use something that's a lot simpler. I think you can actually digest this one. Right, this is sort of the model of content marketing that I use, and it's a very good
Yeah.
way to think about technology as well. So there's technology, right, starting with planning. So this is your technology for doing research and topic ideation and competitive research, those sorts of things, right? So content curation, all of those pieces, right? So you're planning, you're strategizing your content. What kinds of things are we going to produce? The next point in the circle is produce, right? So you're actually developing the content. And in terms of the technology there, right, you've got tools for writing like Grammarly. You've got project management tools that help you collaborate with a team on content that you're developing. You've got all the visual content tools, Canva, Visme, Venngage, right? A bunch of those that help you develop visual content. You've got all the photo editing tools. You've got the video editing and audio editing and video creation tools. So a whole set of tools there for creating content, screencasting, right? A bunch of those. Then it goes to the sort of the distribution or the promotion of that content. How do you get it out there? And so those are all the tools that help with SEO, with keyword research, with social media management, influencer marketing, tools to help you make your paid advertising more effective, email programs, all those things that help you get the content out there. And then the final point on the curve is the analysis. So that's your web analytics, competitive intelligence, marketing performance, those types of tools. So that there's technology, and then there's that. All of that sits on top of course, a base of like other business operations tools and personal productivity tools and all those sorts of things. So there's technology for almost everything today. But if you sort of put it within a framework, it's easier to deal with. And again, that massive 8,000 tools in the super graphic. In terms of AI. That's interesting because I'm planning to do a blog post about that soon. I haven't done all the research yet, but I've kind of taken a little bit of a look, and it's not so much about marketers, becoming AI experts, but more about understanding how AI can be applied into some of the tools that they're using and the technologies and how they can utilize that. And so there are there's tools like AdBase, which in email marketing, which uses AI to, instead of saying we're gonna send out our email blast every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, it actually uses AI to help you segment your list and send it at the best time for everybody on the list. So you're sending your emails at a whole bunch of different times, but everybody's getting it at what is proved to be the best time. So it dramatically improves open rates, right? That's a good one. There's a tool called Pave.ai, which is for analytics, and it ties into your Google Analytics, and it brings you just this wealth of insights that you wouldn't have found otherwise, because it crunches, I think it's 16 million data points, and it runs in like 20 minutes. It's a pretty incredible tool. There are tools for like AI chatbots, right, like Chat Fuel, those sorts of things. There's tools in sales. There's a new one that's just coming out from the Payment Tie, the guy who founded Visme, has a tool coming out called Respana, which is for influencer marketing, and it's going to automate pieces of that, but also apply AI to that. So there's a lot of things happening there. And again, in terms of the AI technology specifically, it's just about kind of understanding what's out there and what it can do for you and how it can improve operations. But let the tool vendors worry about the specific technology of it.
Yeah, that's actually I think the 8,000 tools that are listed. I don't know if I mean there are plethora of tools out there, but it is on the marketers to decide on what they want to leverage and use depending on the type of customers they have with them.
Absolutely. And again, like I say, having a framework to kind of put all that into so it makes sense. So you're dealing with things in manageable pieces.
So, what are mediums and social media channels that work well for the B2B business, and how crucial is content marketing to reap the maximum benefit?
Well, the channels, of course, are again. There's a couple of models out there. Jenny Dietrich has talked about the PESO model, right? So paid, earned, shared, and owned comment, or extending that one more level. You could call it like POSE, right? POSE. So it's paid, owned, shared, earned, and email, or email. So it brings that piece into it. I've got one more graphic. This is actually the just a slightly more complex version of the simple one. But if you go to if you Google B2B marketing technology, the first site that comes up should actually have an interactive version of this same graphic, so you can hover over it, click on things and whatnot. But again, we're kind of talking about the planning the content, then producing. There's the channels, and then the analysis. So that model again kind of works well. I usually talk about those in a slightly different order, right? So to me, everything starts with your own content. That's your website, and that's where SEO obviously plays a big role. So again, planning the content, doing keyword research, understanding what is your market cares about, writing about that, optimizing that for search, and then from there, promoting that on social. So there you've got your whole social media management tools, monitoring those types of things. Earned would be obviously the influencer marketing, so reaching out to influencers and getting some amplification there and building some relationships there. There's the paid piece, which is about optimizing your advertising, getting the most for your spend. And then those are all kind of top of the funnel. And then there's email, which is sort of goes throughout the funnel, right? You can use email for cold prospecting, but it can also be used obviously for lead nurturing, as well as customer communications, right? So it goes throughout the entire funnel. And when it gets to the customer communications piece, email is probably the primary channel, but there are also this whole new or sort of evolving field of customer engagement software tools, right? Work Out Loud is one that happens to be here in the Minneapolis area that enables companies to build sort of communities of their customers, and they can do events and announcements and have discussion forums and all those sorts of things. So there's a lot happening there, and I just come back to the content is sort of the core of it, though. So it starts there. And then the different channels are what gets the content out there and distributed and really builds that sort of online visibility that smaller businesses need to sort of get credibility, get their brand out in the market. And so when they do cold outreach or whatever, people at least have some familiarity with the brand, and they sort of know who you are and kind of what you stand for, what you do.
Yeah.
The content is, to me, it's like the brand's voice, right? So your goal is to both demonstrate your knowledge, but also demonstrate your helpfulness, and sort of give people some trust in your brand, both from the standpoint of, yes, these seem like people who know what they're doing, but also people who are out there to help and can help me solve my problem.
Yeah. It is always like, at least with the SMEs, to have more clients to gain trust. It is like if you provide them the content they need or they want to follow, then they'll develop this trust and might join your community and might then get interested to the product. So, yeah.
Exactly, and so that online advocacy is a big piece for, again, spreading the brand message and it's building credibility, which is vital for small companies trying to get a foothold in the marketplace.
Yeah, definitely. So, how can influencer marketing be leveraged for B2B business, and how does it help in building a community?
So we kind of mentioned influencer marketing there, about that helps to get the word out and helps to build credibility. And I think it's important to distinguish between B2C influencer marketing and B2B influencer marketing, very different worlds. On the B2B or on the B2C side, it's very image, right, kind of oriented. There are these social media people who are Insta famous. And there's always, or I shouldn't say always, but there has lately come up a lot of concern about credibility and the ethics, and are these people really using these products, and do they really know what they're talking about? And so there's a lot of concern there. On the B2B side, it's totally different. The fame or the following that a person has on the B2B side is based much more on their knowledge, their expertise. They have to display that every day. They have to, be doing work in the field. That's how they build their base, but it also gives them instant credibility because they're not going to become an influencer unless they know what it is they're talking about. So it's more of they've earned, right, that credibility, that reputation that they've got. There is a lot of potential there for SMBs to work with influencers on content development, on expanding their social network, and on referrals, which is really huge. Obviously, referrals are a big part of marketing for small business. And again, in a normal environment, right, there's a lot of face-to-face networking that goes on, right? There are a lot of conferences and social media events and things that people go to have these face-to-face conversations and kind of build credibility that way. Right now, that is sort of off the table. So much more of this is being done online, but it's still, there are still ways to build that community even in this current environment. And if I can throw out a quick story on sort of how this can be used. I've worked with a few companies in the live events industry, which of course has been decimated right now. So it's really tough times for them. And again, we're hoping that comes back sooner rather than later. But back a year ago, 2 years ago, when the industry was really thriving, there was a group called Creative Event, or there is still a group called Creative Event Team, which is a sort of a almost like a consortium of event planners, of some entertainment booking companies, sound and lighting companies, event technology companies, right? And they're all non-competitive, so they work together to kind of cross-refer business among each other, and that was at least partially built through influencer marketing. And so that's a way that companies can. It doesn't have to be necessarily a formal structure like that, but building relationships with complementary providers in your industry, right? So they sell something else, but they sell to the same buyers that you do. So those relationships can be very important in building that referral network. For startups, I think this is actually influencer marketing is actually one of the most effective tactics. And again, especially in this current environment when we can't do the live networking.
Yeah. There are it's like something like a word of mouth that if somebody, there is influencer marketing, so there are people who are looking into your company, and that might spread a word around of the company and might help you bring in the community.
Right. And again, it can help in a number of ways in building that social network and in getting people to mention you or refer you if they've learned about your company, and especially if they built a relationship with you. And on the content side, doing expert interviews, expert roundup posts, doing things like this, right? Video interviews, all good ways to help get the word out.
Yes. So, do you have any opinions on paid marketing versus organic, and which is more effective, and how should a startup approach any of these methods?
So I think both are important. An analogy I often use is tomato plants versus apple trees, right? So a tomato plant is going to produce results very quickly, right? They grow quickly, they start producing tomatoes very quickly, but they don't last long. Yeah. You have to keep planting them. That's like advertising, right? It can produce results very quickly and almost immediately, but you have to keep doing it. As soon as you stop paying Google, your search ad disappears. Yeah. And it does you no benefit. It does you no good at that point. Content marketing is more like planting an apple tree. It doesn't necessarily do a lot at first, but it builds over time. and it produces really long-term benefits. And again, one example I'll throw out here, there's a company I've worked with, Kinetic Data, that if you search for, so they wrote a piece way back called 5 Steps to a Better Service Desk. So if you search for something like help desk improvement, I think they still rank number 2, and that page still gets a ton of hits. That article was written more than 10 years ago. So, but it's philosophical as opposed to talking about a specific technology, and they've done a few updates to it over time. So it's very evergreen content, and it's very productive, and a well written content can have that kind of result, right? It can produce benefits over a long period of time. So that organic content is very important to use along with the paid advertising. Paid advertising for startups it's important. Like I say, it produces quick results, but it can also get expensive very quickly. And typically, as a startup, you're working with a small budget, so it's important to do it really carefully, right? So have a plan in place to start small. Focus on just a few keywords. If you're doing like search advertising, you want to limit your hours, to the most productive hours of display. You probably want to limit the geographic area. And you want to start to build it up as it produces results and it's generating, revenue that you can put back into it. But obviously being very careful about testing and keeping things on a small scale. As you sort of get that out there and launch that, whether it's Google ads or whether you're doing social media on LinkedIn is probably best for B2B. Both LinkedIn and Facebook offer very granular targeting, so you can really get to the right target that you're going after. And one thing to keep in mind there is that obviously Google does both the search ads and the ads their display or their content partner network. Putting those display ads out there on their content network can actually be a very low-cost way of brand building because, right, the click-through rate tends to be fairly low and you're only paying per click. So you can actually get hundreds of thousands of impressions potentially for a pretty low cost because you're not paying by the impression, right? You're only paying by the click. So that can help with brand building very quickly. But obviously, it's very important to spend time on that organic content, and there is no better spokesperson generally for any startup than the founder, right? The person behind it, because they understand the problem, they know the people that they're selling it to, and they're passionate about it.
Yes.
And that passion can come through. They may not be the greatest writers, they may not want to get into video production, right? So they may hire freelancers, agencies, whatever, to help them with the production of it, but the heart and soul of that content needs to come from the founder because that's the person who can really best tell the company's story. I've done quite a few interviews on my blog with, I call it founder interviews or entrepreneur interviews, right, with people who've either recently started companies or in some cases, bless you. The companies have been around for a few years, but they're still founder-led, right? And what is universal is their motivation. Every single founder I've talked to, their motivation is they are passionate about solving a problem that they understand well. So again, that forms the basis of the content.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. So concluding, do you have any other thoughts that you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, let me think. This has been great. If I had one more thing I would throw out there, it's probably that. So we've obviously talked a lot today about channels and tactics and trends and these things, and those are all important. But I do think it's important for marketers not to get sort of too distracted by that kind of shiny object kind of thing. The most important thing that a marketer can do, in my mind, is talk to customers. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, of course, but it's not done nearly as much as it should be. And there's evidence of that. Again, I did some research sort of late summer, early fall last year, so about 9 or 10 months ago, looking at B2B technology, looked across hundreds of B2B technology companies on social media, and discovered that less than a quarter of them do consistent brand monitoring and respond to people mentioning them on social media, which is really a bad percentage if you think about it. It's very important for companies to understand what's being said about them and to respond in at least three different ways. One is thanking your advocates. If somebody says something good about your brand, amplify that and thank them for it. If somebody has a complaint or a criticism, it's important to show the world that you're responding to that, you're addressing that complaint, you're dealing with it. And the third is not necessarily positive or negative, but just questions. People have questions about brands, and sometimes they'll throw them on social media. And if the brand isn't responding, they're not only missing the opportunity, but it looks bad. There's so much that can be learned from talking to customers, whether on social media or whether it's picking up the phone and calling, right? And that can really helpfully inform everything. So how you're doing your messaging, what channels you're using, what tactics you're using, your strategy, everything can be really informed by that. And one final thing to throw out, if possible, talk to either customers who are leaving your company, and maybe they've just, assuming it's not a bad thing, and maybe they just outgrown you or they've changed their strategy or something. If your company was really screwed up, you're going to know that. It's not a mystery. Oh, they're leaving because we did, we screwed up. But if it's not that, right? If it's some other reason, talking to either customers who are leaving or to those prospects that you didn't win, right? The ones where you were in right down to the end of the sales cycle, and they ended up making another choice. Those people will generally be pretty open and honest at that point, right? Especially if it's not the salesperson doing the call, it's somebody else, somebody in marketing or somebody else within the company, just reaching out and just asking, what did you like about us? Where did we fall short? What could we do better? That's really vital information to collect. And again, there are obviously some companies that do it very well, but there are a lot that don't do it. Either don't do it well or don't do it at all. And that's really a missed opportunity and a great place to focus on to help, again, circling back on building that strategy, messaging, tactics, media, all those pieces of the marketing.
Yeah, that is actually the heart and soul of whatever you put in. Lastly, it is going to be the customers that you have to make happy, and if they are not happy, then maybe it is not going to be a long-lasting journey.
Well, and not even monitoring, right? Not even knowing whether they're happy or not is not good. So it's very important. And brand monitoring has gotten so simple, right? There's so many tools out there now for social listening, for brand monitoring across the web, that there's it's easy to do, and it's just a very important piece to add to the marketing mix.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you so much, Tom, for giving us your time. I think your insights and the examples and the frameworks and the tools that you have shared with us, it is really valuable, and I know that the audience is really going to enjoy this interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
So if you have stuck around for this long, we are so excited to announce that our ebook, The Evolution of Customer Experience, is out and available to download. Check the link in the description below for more details. We'll be back with a new episode with a brand new expert soon, so stay tuned and we'll see you around for the next one. Thank you so much.